In this lesson, you will learn about retaliation, conflicts of interest, solicitation of gifts, and misuse of public property. Additional information regarding these topics can be found in the Sandy City Employee Handbook. To start, we're going to learn about retaliation. There are many uses for this word, but in the workplace it's defined as when an employer punishes an employee for engaging in legally protected activity. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits retaliation against someone for making a complaint or assisting in an investigation. To put it more simply, an employer can't punish an employee just because they filed a formal complaint or are part of an investigation that might see someone disciplined. A number of actions taken by employers are examples of retaliation. For example, transferring an employee to a less desirable position is an example of retaliation. Spreading false rumors about an employee or treating an employee's family member negatively. Engaging in verbal or physical abuse or threatening an employee or increasing scrutiny of that employee. Reprimanding an employee or giving him or her a performance evaluation that is lower than it should have been. Making the employee's work more difficult. For example, punishing an employee for making a complaint by purposefully changing his work schedule to conflict with a family responsibility. Sandy City is against all forms of retaliation as stated in the Employee Handbook. The city prohibits any form of retaliation against you for filing a complaint under this policy or for assisting in a complaint investigation. It's important for both employers and employees to understand what retaliation is so that they can recognize it when they are participating in it or falling victim to it. At Sandy City, supervisors have a responsibility to make sure employees are not being retaliated against. Making a complaint or participating in an investigation does not, however, protect an employee from all disciplinary action. If the employee needs to be disciplined for other reasons that are not based on retaliation or discrimination, there are no laws that prohibit this discipline. Information on retaliation can be found on page 5 of the Employee Handbook. Our second section of today's training is about conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest can cause all kinds of problems for the city if employees aren't aware of what is permitted and what is prohibited. Conflicts of interest are defined as a situation in which the concerns or aims of two different parties are incompatible. In this case, it's when the interests of an employee of Sandy City are not compatible with those of the City of Sandy. Similar to retaliation, several actions are prohibited to avoid falling into this difficult situation. As a Sandy City employee, you cannot improperly use private, controlled, or protected information because of your position. You also cannot secure special privileges or exemptions for yourself or other people because of your position. Finally, you cannot knowingly receive, accept, take, seek, or solicit directly or indirectly any gift or loan for yourself or another if the gift or loan tends to influence you in the discharge of your official duties. Stay away from these things and you will stay far from trouble with conflicts of interest. There are a few things that these prohibitions do not apply to. An occasional non-monetary gift having a value of less than $50 is not prohibited. Any loan made in the ordinary course of business. A political campaign contribution if the contribution is actually used in a political campaign. And finally, an award that's publicly presented. Additional information on conflicts of interest can be found on page 44 of the Employee Handbook. Solicitation of gifts is also strictly prohibited. The Employee Handbook reads, "The solicitation of financial contributions and gifts or soliciting for any other reason is restricted. It is inappropriate for a city employee to use or attempt to use his official position to secure special privileges for himself or others or to solicit any gift of substantial value or substantial economic benefit." It's also important to note that it's prohibited for employees to place personal solicitations, information, or announcements on the network computer system. Additional information on this topic can be found on pages 44 and 45 of the Employee Handbook. One thing that Sandy City employees should avoid at all costs is misusing public property. It's easy to think that because you work for the city, you should be exempt from some of the rules as far as using city property. This is not the case. All employees should not use city property for personal use except for when 1. It is permitted in advance by the department head, make sure to get this permission in writing. And 2, as described in the Sandy City Employee Handbook outlining the use of city electronic devices and internet, city vehicles, and city cellular phones. Make sure to refresh your memory on these policies so that you are in compliance. Thanks for listening to the training today. With additional questions, contact Human Resources.